welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, it's time for our March monthly wrap up. This month I read 16 books. We're going to start with the 2 books that I read on my Kindle, and then we'll get into the physical reads. So, the first book I read on my Kindle is Church Girl by Dr. Sarita Lyons. This book, I initially saw Jackie Hill Perry posted, I think like a year ago on her Instagram, and I thought it was super interesting. So I got it on my Kindle, the ebook version, and it was so good. So what I liked about it is she really tackles things that I don't see tackled in other books. So for example, she doesn't exclude race when she talks about church girls. She doesn't exclude things that are kind of specific to black women in church settings. She talks about church hurt. She talks about how tempting it can be sometimes to find validation and identity elsewhere. Then she ties it all back to the gospel and Christ. I thought it was done really well. And I've been meaning to read it for a few months, so I was glad I was able to get to it in March. Yeah. And then the second book that I read on my Kindle was The Baddest by Trina. The reason I read this is because growing up a millennial, I listened to Trina a lot. And when I had no business, first of all, I had no business listening to most of that music, but I did. So I was interested to see what her book was about. And if you liked Eve's biography or memoir, you like Trina's. I heard some people say that it was kind of shallow, which I can see why. She definitely keeps some stuff to her chest, but it wasn't as closed off as Eve's was. Like, she did kind of mention people by name. She definitely talked about some of the friends she made in the industry. And like Eve's memoir, she really talked about how she was the only female on her label, but she was surrounded by a group of guys who really protected her, which you don't see much. To me, to my surprise, the same thing I thought when I was reading Eve's. I just assumed that they were being attacked from all angles and people were just preying on them. And they really just had to fight back and push back. But they seemed to be insulated really well. They had a good group of people around them. You learn where Trina got her attitude from, where she got all of that confidence from. Definitely her mama and the other women that she was raised by. And yeah, it was interesting. Her journey to fame was different than what I've read from other people's. I didn't know much about Trina outside of her music, so it's kind of interesting learning about her. Yeah, so those are the 2 books that I read. Now we're gonna jump into my physical reads. I have 2 library books in here, and then the other ones are mine. So let's start with Ultra 85 by Logic. This is one of the books that my husband got me for the Book Advent Challenge. This is a sci-fi book about kind of imagine Interstellar, but if Logic wrote it. So it was about these 2 guys who were on a journey to this other planet that was kind of like a utopia, or supposed to be, traveling to a planet that was supposed to be a utopia, but things aren't as they seem. So yeah, I thought it was really good. I know if y'all follow me on Instagram, you know I said I ran into this lady at the park who acted like this was the worst book she's ever read, ever. She was just the best part was the end, me waiting for the end. It was terrible. I wish I can get the minutes back. I didn't feel that way about this book. I actually liked it. It had a lot of pop culture references, a lot of movie references. It paid homage to a lot of 80 films and music. And I found that interesting, but some people find it annoying. So if you like pop culture references, if you're a movie buff, if you like things like that, I think you would enjoy this. I found it entertaining. So it's book 1. Also, from my Book Advent Challenge, my husband got me Pray by Michael Crichton. And Michael Crichton is one of his favorite authors, so I figured I would get one of these books from him. Anyways, this is another sci-fi book, and I'm trying to think of what I could compare it to, but basically it follows a man who is in tech, but he kind of got out and became a stay-at-home dad. Well, they needed his help and brought him back in because his wife was involved in this company that had a lot of stuff going on. And this book deals with AI and what it can and can't do and the implications of it. Like, we create things for a purpose, but what happens when those things created for this purpose start doing their own thing? What happens when the unlikely happens, when what you don't expect this to do this, but it does it? And it's not a great quote in here I really like that says, the things that we make have a way of making us. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's good. Fast paced, very interesting. It has a very, I'm not going to say it's super character driven. It's more plot driven, even though the main character is pretty cool. This is definitely more plot driven. I enjoyed it. Next, we have All About Love by Bell Hooks. I want to actually do a separate video on this book. This was recommended to me by a friend, and she asked me had I read it. And I'm like, no, I know who Bell Hooks is. I read a lot of her other stuff when I was in undergrad, but I hadn't read this. So when she asked me that, I was like, no, I haven't read it. And she said it changed her perception on love. It literally changed her mindset surrounding the whole thing. So I was interested at that point. I got it. I read it. I understand what she's saying because this book was definitely impactful as a woman, as a parent, because it talks about those parental relationships too, like from the child's perspective and the adult's perspective. It challenges a lot of things that we think is love. It challenges, it like drives a wedge or division in between intimacy and love and care and love, because sometimes we blur the lines between the two and so many other things. So this was good. I'll do a separate review on this because I just feel like it's so much that can be said about this. And if you haven't read it, it's a good one. It's a good one. Okay, next, y'all saw I did a reading vlog on Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to The Hunger Games. It's Haymitch's account of when he was in a Quarter Quell. It's good. Like, I already liked Haymitch as a character, but seeing like it brings everything back full circle. Like, you get to see why he felt the way he did about Katniss and Peeta, why he did the things he did, and how much that bond means once you see his backstory, see his account of the games when he was in the Hunger Games. And remember, when he was in there, we learned from the first books, there was double the tributes. So it's interesting, and how just it makes you think too about like the impact that you can have, even if you don't think you're changing anything in the moment. Like, you have no idea what your future impact would be, and you have no idea how that can inspire future like acts. So this was so good. This was like heartbreaking at the end. I was in shambles, but it was really good, y'all. If y'all haven't seen my reading vlog, check that out. It's spoiler free. Okay, and then y'all know I'm making my way through Toni Morrison's fiction catalog. So this month I read Love, Paradise, and Jazz. I read Jazz first. Beautiful. It was supposed to, like, the way it's written, it's supposed to mimic jazz music. So it's non-linear. It is very much almost lyrical in the way that it reads too. Yeah, almost lyrical. You get those characters that you can't shake. Jo Trace, Joe's wife, Violet, or who they call Violent, because, you know, you get that. You get like the intro to this will just the first paragraph just draws you right in. Very interesting. But just like with all her other books, traumatic. It talks about race. It talks about colorism. It talks about trauma. It talks about the aftermath of slavery. Same thing with Paradise. You still talking about the aftermath of slavery, still talking about trauma, still talking about trying to rebuild what was stripped away from you. Paradise deals with a black community that's kind of like operating on its own. So they have their own everything, and they're essentially operating outside of the community that they're in. They're not bothering nobody, but some stuff start happening here and it gets crazy. And again, just like Jazz is non-linear, it can, this book I found myself having to reread pages and paragraphs in almost all of her books, but this one I found myself rereading the most. I found myself like 3 or 4 pages in and to be like, wait a minute, what? And have to go back and reread it just because this was so, it had a lot more symbolism than I expected. I don't know. Like I read the synopsis and I just wasn't expect to be like this challenged intellectually. So I had to reread this a few times. But this is also, and I feel that way about Jazz too. This is something that I feel like I'd get more out every time I reread it. So I understand why people say they read this 3, 4, or 5 times. I can also understand why some people say that this is their favorite book out of her fictional catalog. It was layered in a way I wasn't expecting. And again, you have trauma packaged in a way it's not for the sake of trauma, it's for a reason. And you're going on this journey and you're following these characters. But it's just like, dang, again, dealing with the aftermath of slavery. This was intense. And not just the subject matter, just, again, I think it was just like her technique using this. It took me a couple of rereads on some of the spots to actually track where I was going. And then at some points, I felt like I kind of got lost and I just let myself. And then it kind of like came back. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this was a really good read. Definitely more challenging than I expected. Really great. Then we have Love. Okay, Bill Cosey. This deals with how love can be. It can be great, that it can tear you to shreds on this earth after the lover is gone. It can haunt you. It can be generational. The trauma can be generational. This book is multi-generational, multi-layered. It actually spans across 3 generations, and it jumps back and forth between the different perspectives of the women that we're following in each generation. And you kind of I found myself losing track a little bit, but again, you go back and flip through, you'll be like, okay, this is whose voice we're listening to now. But this really just makes you think you could be under the spell of love and think that everything is okay, and it will drive you insane. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, takes place in a beach town that's fading, or like a fading beach town. So yeah, pretty good. I'm still thinking about what my favorite Toni Morrison book has been thus far. I think I know. I'm just so torn. Like, I'm torn. It's 2 of them that are like fighting for my number 1 spot. It is so hard. I go back and forth. I ain't gonna tell y'all yet. But in April, I'll be reading the last 3 books of her fictional catalog. And then I'll do like a full wrap-up video. I'm pretty sure I know what my favorite one is thus far. But it's so hard to categorize the rest because, like, does she even have a bad book? That's crazy. Anyways, just like I'm making my way through Toni Morrison's fictional catalog, my son and I are making our way through Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series. And this month, we made it through book 2 and 3. So we made it through the Chamber of Secrets. This is the Mina Lima collection. It's so pretty. I wish I could show y'all this without it being like, I don't know if y'all could see it, but It's just beautiful, like the artwork in here. But anyways, read The Chamber of Secrets, and then we also read Prisoners of Azkaban. So far in the series, this is my first time reading through the series as an adult, or period. My first takeaway is The Prisoners of Azkaban is my favorite so far. I don't know how that's going to change, but I kind of connected to the story of Sirius Black, and this is where I figured out that I really do like Hermione. Harry kind of like grew up a little bit, and then Ron had a little more of an impact in this book than he did in the other books for me. I can't remember if my son, did you say this was your favorite book so far? This is also my kid's favorite book in the series so far. We're reading The Goblet of Fire in April, so I'll let y'all know. But y'all, these books, they're just so gorgeous. I wish I could like just show y'all. Like, and then it's like pop-ups, but yeah, y'all, it's so good. Anyways, those two. Next, I read Weapons of Math Destruction by Cathy O'Neil. This book was a book that was in one of my, like a professional book club, and it talks about the impact of big data on humans and the impact of computer-generated algorithms that are so complex. They want to be viewed as non-biased and kind of like to remove the human interaction and intervention and angle from it, but really they can be and have proven to be very detrimental. It talks about weapons of math destruction. That's what she calls like the complex big data algorithms that are used to generate like like models for recidivism rates, where some judges could use it for sentencing. It talks about how companies use it in their application process and hiring process. Talks about how big schools and universities and for-profit universities use it for admissions. Talks about how schools use it to measure their teachers' impact on the students. It talks about how banks decide when they're going to loan certain things and will you get your home loan and all kinds of things, and how we've been almost conditioned to believe that if it's a math generated algorithm or method that is unbiased, it's not. And not only did she kind of expose like the dark side, I don't want to say the dark side, but yeah, the dark side of big data, she also talks about solutions. So she even talked about like what data scientists could do, what the mathematicians involved in creating these algorithms can do. She talks about how we can avoid predatory practices in lending. Talks about how even advertising can be predatory, and so many other things like you don't really think of, or I didn't think of. This book kind of brings a lot of that to the light. So I thought this was very eye-opening, very interesting. And yeah, she even talked about how it's used like for sports betting. But the difference is like when you're thinking about sports stats and stuff like that, there's a level of transparency that's nowhere near what's like in the other things that actually affect human lives. So like she talks about how you can almost embed transparency into the models and some things like that, because sometimes people don't even know that they're in like using these models or being like analyzed in that way. So I thought that was interesting. Gave me a lot of stuff to think about. But yeah. The next book, I read this because my husband was appalled that I've never read this book before. And he's been asking me for years, like, you ain't read this book, you ain't read this book. As things fall apart. So I did. He's been shocked that I've never read this. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to read it. I got it. I read it. And I did not read a synopsis before I read it. I just jumped into it because he was like, it's a classic. What you mean you ain't read it? This book talks about and deals with it follows the main character, but it deals with the colonization of Africa, specifically his village or clan. talks about the Christianity coming to Africa and how it starts like separating out his clan. It talks about different traditions and not following in the pathway of your father or your forefathers. The main character really like didn't want to be like his dad. He wanted to separate himself so far from like the type of person his dad was. He went to the extreme. Then he had a son that he kind of saw his dad in, so dealing with that. And then the ending of this book made me mad. It did. It made me mad. But it does, this book, it made me think about, the colonization of Africa and like how you, even if you think, oh, this is so much better for them, like why do you think that? What makes you think that it's so much better for them? Because it's better for you. And then like the reasons they were given was like, yeah, so it was an interesting book. I'm glad I read it. He's right, I should have been read it. But we're here now and I read it. And I know this is part of a trilogy. I don't know if I'll read the other two. I might, just because I kind of want to see how things play out. But yeah. 3 more books, y'all. 3 more books. I already did a review on these 2. It is Daniel Black, Don't Cry For Me, and Isaac Song. I read Don't Cry For Me first, and then I read Isaac Song. I checked these out from the library. But these books, the first book, like I said, I already did a review of these, but the first book deals with Isaac. Jacob is the dad, and he's writing to his son, Isaac, about he's about to die, and that's not a spoiler. That's like on the back for the synopsis. But he's writing a series of letters that he hopes his son finds to kind of explain why he's the person he is, why he was the dad he was, the father that he was, the husband that he was, how he grew up, the generations before him, what kind of helped him become the man that he is today that impacted Isaac. And so he knows at this point in his life that he was toxic. He knows like that he hurt him, but he also wants to show Isaac that he loved him and he tried, and he didn't have the tools that he needed, type thing. And then Isaac in this book, it's not just a response to his dad Jacob. It's him after he's gone to college, went to work for Microsoft. He is grown and trying to deal with his childhood trauma. He's seeing a therapist who recommends that he starts journaling, which he did, and see if that would help him kind of just find himself and deal with the past and come to terms with everything. And so this is a really good pair. At first I said I didn't know which one I liked more. If I had to pick, I'll go with Don't Cry For Me, but I really did like Isaac's song too. But I just like Don't Cry For Me a tad bit more. Not much, but a tad bit more. So, and then lastly, I reread The Complete Works of Shakespeare because I plan on doing a YouTube video on this. I've read these plays. Y'all wouldn't believe me if I told you the amount of times. Because I read them in high school, I read them in college. Then I took a dedicated Shakespeare class where we went through all of these and kind of dissected them and went over. And then I read them again as an adult a few times. And then I just reread it because I'm doing a YouTube video soon. And yeah, so these aren't my notes. These are just the the new plays. So I have them tabbed on the plays. So King Richard III. What's the next one? King John. Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest, Othello, Julius Caesar, As You Like It. So yeah, that's what these tabs are. I just quickly did that so I can jump back and forth to the different plays. But yeah, Hamlet, things like that. I said I was going to get this video out in April. That's my plan. But y'all know, like, stuff be happening. But I said I would get this video out in April. So I wanted to reread this so it's fresh on my mind for the video. And I really enjoy it. I just like how it's written. I like reading these plays. it brings back memories of like the first time I read it, or like things that my professor said about it, or whatever the case may be. Like it's like a comfort read almost. But yeah, this is 37 plays, and this also includes 4 of his poems, which I don't read the poems that much, but I did for this. But yeah, 37 plays, 4 poems, and I'll be talking about them. Not to mention, wait, now that I go back, I said I read these in high school. I remember reading Midnight Summer Dream in middle school too. So I'm assuming I read a few of these plays in middle school too. Not that much. Yeah, I read Macbeth in middle school too. So yeah, middle school, then high school, college, post-college, and then now. That's it, y'all. 16 books, 14 physical, then 2 on my Kindle. That's it, y'all. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know what you think. We'll try to get that Shakespeare video out. We're gonna see, because I have other videos to do too. I just know like that one takes so much mental energy, and I'm just trying to prepare myself for that, you know. But yeah, let me know what you think. Have you read any of these? Let me know. Okay, see y'all next time.